So the next part of the process is the mixing mastering phase, which is where we actually affect the sound of the recording after we've recorded it, either by adjusting the levels of each individual microphone, or through the use of effects such as EQ, where we can adjust the level of individual frequency or frequency bands. Also dynamics processing, which allows us to adjust the loudness of the recording, and also things like reverb. If we've recorded in a really dry hall, we can add a little bit of reverb tail. And usually the mixing mastering phase involves a combination of all of those. And so the next part of this process here is I will go to the mix window, and you'll see that in just about every software, whether it's Pro Tools or Audacity, is going to have some kind of window like this where you have faders, which allow us to adjust the level of each individual microphone. And you'll notice that I've already made some adjustments because I've already listened to this and done a little bit of mixing. But let's go ahead and listen to each individual microphone so you can actually hear what they sound like by themselves. So here's the ORTF. All right, so you get a lot of the room sound, but it is kind of close up, so you get a little bit of clarity. And here's the room. So that one's a little bit kind of like the ORTF, except it's a little bit farther back in the hall, and you can notice that it's a little bit wider of an image as well. And then lastly, here's the spot mic. So there you can hear like the real clarity of the articulations compared to these room mics. And then when we add them all together, if we go back to where we had it, about 5 dB and -10, then you can hear this balance. And you'll notice that the spot mic obviously takes precedence over the other two microphones in this particular hall. It's not always the case. It just kind of depends on how we've set up the microphones. But in this particular one, that kind of maintains the precedence, and these other ones are just kind of tucked in behind it. But you can mess around with these faders all you want. It doesn't affect the actual audio file. It just affects the signal afterwards once we bounce everything out. So you can mess around until you find the balance that you like, and it's total personal preference. The next part is where we would add EQ to maybe each individual track if I was really mixing this, but for an audition, I wouldn't really recommend using a whole lot of EQ unless you really trust your ears to make those decisions mixing-wise, because it does take a lot of experience to really use EQ effectively. But I will show you some dynamics processing so that we can really adjust the loudness of the recording. So I'm on the master track here. You see the master down here. So I'm actually adjusting the level or whatever effects on that master for the entire recording. So all of these mix in together. And so what I'm going to do is, if I play this back right now, let's get this guy out of the way actually. If I play it back right now, you'll see the level here on the master. It really doesn't go above -10 at all. It really doesn't even go above -15 until maybe the end. Yeah, right about -15. So in digital audio, 0 is actually clipping. So 0 is the absolute top of the loudness spectrum. All right, and everything below it, the negative numbers is where you want to stay. So we don't want to hit 0. But a nice listening level, if you're listening like in the car, or if you're obviously the audition committee is listening with like a CD player, you're going to want to get your top loudest level to as close to like -4, -3 really at the most for your loudest material. All right, so we're going to have to boost all this up because we're only at like -15 right now. We want to get more middle in this yellow area. And I do that by the use of a dynamics processor. This is the Isotope Ozone 7. It's a mastering plugin, and this is actually what we call a maximizer. And it has a couple of parameters. So right here we have the ceiling. This is where we don't want the recording to go past this, and we're going to say -0.1. I'm going to say like -2 actually. So that brings the ceiling all the way down there. so that the recording will not go past -2, which we said -3 was like the absolute most, but we'll just go ahead and say -2 for the ceiling. If I bring this threshold down, that actually adds makeup gain to the actual signal, which basically just makes it louder. All right, and so let's play it now that I brought that down. All right, you can see that it's already going up a lot more. And let's bring it down even more. All right, let's start from the beginning again. All right, that's pretty good. I could probably make an adjustment just a little bit and bring that down just a hair more so that we're getting closer to that -6, -5 area. All right, and so that's going to be a lot more enjoyable for the audition committee, so they don't have to keep turning up the volume on the CD player every time that they listen to you. All right, so let's listen to that again. All right, that's perfect. All right, so that last little blip there was about -5. Another perhaps easier way to add loudness to your recordings is through the use of normalization. Normalization basically just adds gain to the clip to bring whatever the peak level of that clip is to a target line. For instance, if the peak of this particular clip is -15 decibels, and we want that to be brought up to -3 decibels, our target line for normalization, then the normalization plugin will just add 12 dB to the entire clip. It's really that simple. And so let's go ahead and do that. We have a stereo recording here that we did with a Zoom recorder of the same excerpt, recorded at the same time as these other microphones. And I'm going to select that clip. I'm going to go to Audio Suite, Other, and Normalize. And I'll bring up this dialog box. All right, so we have the difference here between peak normalization and RMS. We're going to stick with peak because peak is exactly what I just described. It's just going to add gain based off of whatever the peak is. RMS does the same thing, but it does it based off of the average loudness throughout the entire clip. And because of that, it can actually cause your recording to clip. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with peak. Here we have our target line, which is set at 0 right now. And we discussed earlier when we were using the maximizer that our target line was between -3 and -5 decibels. This is where we want the loudest part of the clip to be. And so let's set that to -3. And then we'll hit render. And there it is. So it has added gain to the entire clip to bring the peak level of the clip up to -3 decibels. All right, and here is what you get. And you can see the level here. That's around -3 decibels right there. And so those peaks we're hitting right at -3, which is where we want it. And so basically you get the exact same result as using a maximizer. However, I still do recommend using a maximizer because of the transparency. A lot of engineers will agree that normalization can sometimes add some more noise floor to the actual recording. And speaking on that, whether you're using normalization or maximizing, the idea is to get your recordings to be as loud as they possibly can when you're actually recording it, so that we can basically do as little processing in the back end as possible. Because the more processing you're doing, if it's a much softer recording in the beginning, then you can hear this noise floor. All right, so there is a particular noise floor when you're recording anything. And when you're recording such a soft recording and you're having to boost it, say 12 decibels like we did here, you're also boosting the noise floor. And this is what we call the signal to noise ratio. So the idea is to make sure that when you are recording, to do sound checks and make sure that you're recording at an acceptable volume when you're actually doing the recording, so as not to have to add a whole lot of gain in the post-production phase, which then in return adds a whole lot of noise to the recording. All right, so that's kind of the idea there. And just like I showed you, we can edit the same way in Audacity as we did in Pro Tools. we can also normalize the exact same way. So let's take a look at these clips. I'm going to select the first one. It's very easy. We go to Effect, we go to Normalize, and you'll see that it says Normalize Maximum Amplitude to -3 decibels, which is exactly how we did it in Pro Tools. You can keep Remove DC Offset. That's fine. Hit OK, and there you have it. Same thing. All right, and we would do the exact same thing with the clips. So normalization, regardless of Pro Tools or Audacity, GarageBand, whatever, it's all the exact same process and pretty much produces the exact same results.